Hey Nick,
Hey, how's it going?
going great. So it is night where you are. Tell us where you are.
Yes, I'm in France right now, in the south of France. The country is back down on lockdown because of the virus that's going around right now, and it's spiking in Europe again. So I'm just
Yeah.
with some friends in the south of France, and yeah, that's where I'm
So
at
you
right now.
you're doing a little curfew, right? In France for now.
Yes, no, now it's actually like a full lockdown.
Oh,
Like,
really? Oh, I'm sorry to
yeah,
hear.
it's not as intense as the lockdown that we had in the spring, but it's pretty strict right now. So
I got you. Well, hopefully
yeah,
we'll go through that together and let's talk about a little bit of the future. But before we start, Nick,
yeah,
so first of all, thank you for being with us. Really exciting. We moved our regular weekly Instagram live to an earlier time, which is
thank you. I
because of you.
appreciate it.
Because oh, of course, what a question! We have the a great opportunity to do more of an international Instagram live. So before we even start, Nick, tell us a little bit about you personally. Whatever you want to say. Where do you actually live? What do you do? Why are you on this, kind of live experience? Anything.
Yeah, so I'm right now like an architectural designer. I'm from Los Angeles, California, and lived in Chicago for my high school years. I studied at the University of Southern California. I studied architecture in the 5 year program. I
Hmm.
took some time
Is that
off
a
during.
combined program? Is that like the 5 year program, the master's basically,
It's not a
or
master's, but it's accredited by NCARB, which is the body that you get licensed through in the U.S. as
I
an
got you. I
architect.
got you. That's why it's longer. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so it
Go ahead.
means you
Sorry, I
don't
cut you off.
have to. No, it's okay. It means you don't have to get a master's degree to be able in order to become licensed in the U.S. Um,
Hmm.
and during my studies, I took some time off to intern in an office in Tokyo, Japan, at Shigeruban Architects, and then
Oh,
at Morof Architects in Paris, France. And that's actually where I work at now, currently.
so after growing up in California, dude.
Hmm.
Went to Japan for a while, and now
Yeah.
you're in Paris. Wow, the life of the rich and famous. Sounds
Yeah,
very glamorous.
I'm very,
Yeah,
very fortunate. Yes, I
that's
returned to LA for one more year and worked in Detroit for a little bit, but then I ended up back in Paris about 9 months ago. So
good. So that's
yeah,
really great because you really have a more of a global exposure to what's happening with design architecture. Now, I don't know how much you know, but I'm going to kind of remind to the people who are joining us, and we're going to reuse this material also on a different social media platform.
okay,
So, a MAST is a marketplace for construction material. I've been a real estate developer for 20 years, ran a decent sized company, built 1,000 of units, and and when I left the traditional development, I said, it is mind blowing to me that trillions of dollars are being bought, literally trillions a year, in
hmm,
material. And at the same time, it's such a traditional, old school. Some people still make orders on fax. What is fax?
right,
Um, so we established a MAS, which is a marketplace for construction material. And one of our commitments, a MAS stands for TIC, transparency, integrity, and community. So you belong to kind of like the community conversation. We want to expand the knowledge, expand the conversation around material usage, because one of the feedbacks we're getting ongoingly, and just so you know, we are in Florida, North Carolina, tri-state areas, so New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Boston now. So we really
okay,
and South California. So we're growing really fast. Um, but one of the feedback we're getting is it's a very lonely industry, right? There's not much communication. People buy the same thing or design the same design because that's what they're familiar with. And how many
right,
times you and I, as a developer, I can tell you I work with so many architects who designed the way they studied when they studied 30 years ago. Even if they
right.
went to Cooper Union, the great school, one of those like New York, that's the same. So I would love you to share with us a little bit of first of all, what's the difference you saw between working in Japan, working in California, and working now in Paris as an architect and designer?
Yeah, so I think that I think there are a lot of similarities, I would say, with those different offices that I've worked in throughout the world. But I would say it really depends on what type of office you've been at, and what the direction is. So I've been very fortunate to work under some very successful architects and thinkers. And at those places, they're already, they're always looking for the next thing, the next, supplier, the next product to use and maybe even feature in their buildings, to kind of
Let me,
be at
let,
the,
let me just interrupt. So
yeah.
you're saying your experience is that cutting edge architectural firms actually are pursuing new material and new usage of material worldwide or in their area. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. It
Wow,
is. And
that's amazing. That's very good news because again, more of kind of like from the ground up mentality. I'm thrilled to hear that. And just to add one to what you just said, um, would you say that is it only in the top-notch architects, or is it trickling down when you look at how people teach us architectural? Would you say it stays in that kind of like supreme level, luxury level, or do you
mm,
trickle down to other architects now?
I'm not sure yet. I think for now, I think maybe the process historically and looking forward is that it does start with maybe with architects who have larger clients and a larger worldwide platform. I would say, for example, Shigeru Ban or Morof Kusunoki, and I think that at these places, their clients kind of give them trust and want to potentially, take a little bit more risk with products that haven't necessarily been used on a larger
Would
scale.
would you say that because people who work with those architectural firms actually buy, it's almost like buying art. Like you can say, I use Gary's building, or I build, Moses, like one of like, like one
Yeah,
of those
right,
famous,
right.
would you say
I
that's the reason why maybe the developers have a more freedom to tell the architect, hey, take a risk, experiment, do other things that are much more expensive than the average Joe who's building a 20 unit residential or an office building something?
Yeah, I think so, and I mean, I hope. I'm sure you agree with this. I think that developers tend to kind of do what's tried and true, and use products that they've seen, hundreds and hundreds of times around the city on other buildings, as opposed to using a product that maybe hasn't been used in the city before, like New York, even in the country, for example.
Yeah,
So
I think it's such a complex industry. Construction is such a complex industry.
exactly.
Architects is a huge part of it, but it's that the intention and the willingness to take a risk is very slim because to start with, if you are a real estate developer or builder, you are taking huge risks, whether it's called
Right.
financial, market, things take longer. So I think when it comes to design, a lot of developers are really scared of taking a risk. What if I do something that maybe looks amazing, but then the department building aren't going to approve it, or the clients are not going to, even if the clients like it, what if my construction team doesn't know how to install this material? Because one thing of
Right.
the challenges is, okay, you bring this extraordinary material to usage, but the framer who's doing the work in the construction site, they don't know how to install it. It doesn't look as good as I had it visualized. And unless I bring someone who's a real expert, and it costs me 10 times more to install it and make it really, really unique and special.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think
So how
that's
do
the
we deal? How
difficult.
do we deal with that? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So I think, for example, at Shigeru Ban's office, I was an intern there, and I think as an intern, your job is to help further the design thinking, but also to really observe what's happening and learning, how the office is run, and how, the full-time employees are working and researching. And so what I observed when I was there, was we were using or proposing to use a very specific kind of mass timber product that was coming out of Germany at the time. And so we were examining and kind of researching different ways that this product could be used for a wall and for a roof, and even for the flooring. And so I think that after going through that much research, when it comes time to presenting that to the developer, for example, once you have really done the research and spent months looking at this product and getting samples of it, and getting advice from the technicians at those suppliers, that's where you can really push with the developer. And kind of tell them, okay, we can actually use this. We can install this typically, and people don't actually need to be trained, or this is how much it will cost to train these people to install. And I think it does take a lot of research to convince someone to say yes. And
Yeah, I think one of the challenges is that also you might be very, I can tell you as someone who's been a developer for so long, that sometimes you want to do something innovative and exciting, but the city is not up to speed with codes. So you want to
exactly.
do treated wood, and in New York, for example, concrete and steel is the way to get because of fire codes. And then you have to go and really battle with the Department of Building on approving working with treated wood that can be as fireproof as concrete and steel.
Exactly.
But go convince someone who is a bureaucrat, not bad or good. I'm just saying that's their job. They are
Mm-hmm.
working in the bureaucracy, that they will take a risk. And just on a personal level, I had a building that we found this extraordinary a boiler system that was green and environmental friendly and saving energy and all that stuff. And we went to the city and said we want to use this, and they said you could use one of those three models.
Mm-hmm.
And we went and installed it, and then the city, by the time we finished the project, which was a year later, the city changed their mind, and we had to rip the boilers and redo it again. Which killed my spirit of innovation as a developer. I was like, I'm not taking any more risk. So
Right.
I think that's one of the challenges, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that's something that I've been working
Is
on
it
a
my
project.
connection, your connection? Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
So if I lost you for a second. I don't know if it's your connection online, but can you repeat the last sentence, please?
Hopefully it doesn't happen again.
It's okay.
So it's something, in that same train of thought, something that I've learned about over the past 8 months, especially. I've been working on a museum project in Australia. Um, and Australia, there are very specific codes there. But there are also some very specific dimensions and suppliers there that we have found a lot of difficulty trying to find, for example, glass sizes and lumber and steel sizes that we can actually have produced within Australia versus having to go somewhere else and shipping it to Australia.
I
I
got
think
you. You have to modify the way you think and kind of understand how can I work with the local supplies. So if suppliers, because if you create glass windows that are not really a fit, what is available is going to throw the cost into a whole different ball game, right?
absolutely, absolutely, and
Yeah,
I think with with the client, it's there's only so much risk you can take when it's such a large project, and you are on the island of Australia that actually does not have a lot of products that exist elsewhere, especially in Europe, for example. So that's
yeah,
been something that's it's been an uphill battle, but it's taught us a lot about how I guess the global construction and design industry works, and how you have to really adjust to code, or I guess choose your battles, right? And some codes you really do
yeah.
want to push and go try to see if you can change.
Yeah, that's really cool. So, Nick, let's dive a little bit to material because, again,
Yeah.
math, we connect buyers and sellers. So, how much would you say, just from your experience, and you got exposed to global offices, how
Mhm.
much time does your team or people around you, so it doesn't have to be your, the people you're working with right now,
Mhm.
spend on exposing themselves to new material, new practices, new factories, and on a global scale?
A ton. I would say,
Really?
I mean,
That's great.
yeah. But at the same time, I think it's too much time, to be honest, because it is difficult to find, these materials that that we're, I guess, dreaming of, or thinking of using, or wishing to use, that
So
sometimes we can't
it
find.
came from, let me just understand it. So
Yeah,
did it come from the fact that you're designing, for example, right now a museum in Sydney? So it's a whole different customers. Would you say, or you do the same when you design an office building or residential buildings?
anything, anything. And I think
Wow.
that I think that. We don't typically we typically design first, right? Design the concept first, and we know what we want, and it then takes a lot of time to find these products, right? Because first you can maybe find one supplier who makes a certain type of product, but that supplier isn't able to produce that product on a large enough scale for a residential building, of 50 units, or an office building or museum, for example. Um,
Yeah. That's great
and
good news for us because we're all
I
about connecting. And we're
yeah,
working with
absolutely.
architectural firms to give free access to a mass um, so they can get to know more material. Because my experience, and again, I'm so thrilled that you're sharing with me because my experience was the opposite, that architect designed
Mm,
kind of an intellectual exercise independently of cost. So how many
mm,
times I saw a beautiful rendering, a gorgeous building with tons of glass, and then I went to the architect after they work all this work, and they said, okay, here's the next first meeting. And they showed me this beautiful facade. And I said, are you guys nuts? This is a up and coming area with affordable housing. And who can afford? Only the glass section is going to cost us $1 million. You are
mm,
disconnected from cost and material in this area specifically. So
right.
I'm thrilled to find out that actually in your experience, you spend a lot of time understanding material, but also understand the cost, the impact, and want to adjust the kind of like tug of war between cost and
Yeah,
commitment to design, right? Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, and I mean I think that's for probably the past 8 months. That's probably been at least half of the time. Half of the time designing is really trying to figure out what we can find within budget, and what makes sense in terms of construction, and transportation to the site, and things like that. And it's been a lot of back and forth with cost estimators, and the engineers and the client. Um, and I think that I just wanted to point out that something that I love so much about working in like international offices is meeting people from all over the world who've trained all over the world. And and that's something that you're kind of able to that's a good way to learn about different products that you might not necessarily know exist, right?
Yeah.
Studying in
Yeah.
Los
Well,
Angeles or in the US.
you need a mask in your office because you can log in, look at different material, who's locally delivered because it's local license. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Bram gave me a secret that you did a really interesting project in Detroit with plywood. You want to share it with us about it?
Yeah, so in Detroit, I actually worked for a super exciting firm called Undecorated, and there I think that there's a lot of interesting work going on, and that's something that attracted me specifically to Detroit, and also to this studio called Undecorated. Um, while I was there, I did mostly just concept design work while I was there, but there were interesting construction projects going on at the time by Undecorated, and a developer called Prince Concepts there. Um, and they're using things like Quonset huts and plywood for housing projects, for example. and they're doing
Interior or exterior?
so the Quonset huts, that's from ground up construction, and you can search projects like True North, or that's by EC3 with Prince Concepts, or
Cool.
the Caterpillar, which is undecorated with Prince Concepts, and those they're using just Quonset huts and plywood to create housing, ground up
Oh,
housing,
wow.
which has been super successful so far, I believe, and I think it's a very exciting concept.
Mhm.
And there are other projects there with just all plywood. But I think that's something Bram is alluding to is my interest in cross laminated timber, and that's something that I was also looking at while I was there, and realized that there. I saw an article about a project that MSU did, Michigan State University did,
University,
using
yeah.
mass timber, and
Hmm.
it's the first project in Michigan using mass timber as the main structure, which is very exciting. I know that's happening a lot in Portland and in Canada and Europe, but not so much in the U.S. just yet. And
Yeah.
something that I found very interesting was that all of this timber for the MSU project was actually coming from Canada, and not coming from within the U.S., the manufactured CLT, which I think is, I think that there's probably a huge hole in the market in the U.S. right now. And I understand that, I've been researching this over the past 2 years since it all started with a mass timber studio at USC. And we went to
Hmm.
Portland and we visited Lever Architecture, which is a cool firm in Portland that's specifically just designing mass timber projects. And they are working very closely with one or two manufacturers very close by. So all their projects are, they're coming straight from the factory, the CLT, and getting
Oh, cool.
constructed right then and there, which is, I
Design,
think,
design, build, basically.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Very cool.
And,
So a few more
and yeah,
questions before when we have, go ahead, please.
yeah,
Just
no, go
finish your
for it.
sentence. Well, no, I just want to, because we have a few more minutes. Uh, what would you say, just your feeling, your prediction about materials being used, the construction material being used on site? So if we speak again in 5 years and in 10 years, what do you think we'll see more? What do you think we'll see yes? How do you see, as someone who's involved in design and kind of see what's coming down the pipe? Um, what do you think will be the changes?
Yeah.
Tell
So
us.
I mean, I do think that there will be more mass timber projects in the U.S. Maybe not
Is
as
mass timber because of the environmental element to it, you think,
yes,
or okay?
absolutely,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think overall, my prediction is actually that more and more projects are going to try to locally source things. What I have found over the
Oh,
past eight
interesting.
months,
Did we
pandemic,
lose you again?
is that all of a sudden
Or no?
everyone, sorry, did
No.
um, with the pandemic, all of a sudden, developers, contractors, they're all trying to find products as close to home as possible. Um,
That's fascinating. So you're saying, what if I hear you correctly? You're saying the way restaurants are now farm to table, we might have, farm to building or whatever the localized. Um, that's really fascinating because all we're dealing with and what we're right now speaking with is globalization, like
mhm.
the logistics of bringing marble from India to serve a building in Florida, and bringing timber from Canada to serve a building in Mexico. So you're actually saying that you'll see a trend maybe of more localized ingredients. Interesting, very
Yeah,
interesting.
I think so. I think so. I think overall, I mean, shipping and transportation, it's already changing quite a bit with the pandemic, and I think that who knows how long this is going to last, but I think that in general, it's going to kind of force people to be more creative with their product choices, and force, I think, suppliers and manufacturers to come up with some more collaborative products that they design with architects in the
So
future.
you'll see more Adobe in Arizona and lumber in New York. That's what you.
I would hope so. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that would
yeah,
be
yeah.
great.
That's really cool. Okay, and what would you say? What would you say is going to be your biggest challenge as a young architect working in the next few years?
I mean, I think that's a tough question. That's a loaded question.
We like to
I
ask tough questions. You know,
I
if
think
not, it's going to be boring. So, yeah.
I mean, honestly, first and foremost, I think that I think architecture, the industry has taken a major hit, as well as in addition to all the other industries that have taken major hits right now, and I think
So
that
you think the first kind of the macro challenge for you will be the recession, looming recession globally.
right, right,
Yeah.
and I think it's gonna have to force a lot of rethinking of what architects do, um, and how they design projects and how they get projects. Frankly,
Well, I think also you're going to have because I went
for
through
the
the
next few
2008
years, it's
recession
gonna.
as a developer. I'm saying that we're losing your connection again, but hopefully you can
Sorry.
hear me. So I think it's someone who went through the 2008 recession as a developer. I can tell you that there'll be much more design, uh, price conscious elements. You know, so
Exactly.
I think that our job, that's one of the things that MS is doing is like, how can I get the results I want, but building with 10 or 20% uh, discount or a saving on my building because I don't have that kind of like open wallet, open checkbook when things are booming.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. And on a personal level, Nick, what would you say your biggest challenge or one of your biggest challenges in the last few years as a young, thriving architect?
I think just understanding actually what I want to be doing within architecture and kind of developing my design direction a bit more, but also my larger goals within the industry and kind of seeing how we can make this industry more accessible in general.
Mm. That's awesome. So right now
Yeah.
you're working in the three-star Michelin restaurants of architect, and as you're working the line cutting vegetables, you're like, when I open my own restaurant, what will be my flavor? Will be my cuisine. That's
Yeah.
how I
Yeah.
hear it, right? Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's
Good
really awesome.
metaphor.
Nick, was yeah. First of all, thanks for the late hour, and I know you are being on lockdown in France, but we wish you healthy. Drink a lot of wine. Enjoy
Thank you.
this slowdown in the world
Yeah.
because hopefully we'll go back to normal, more normal life in the next few months. Thank you for your time. It really we've been a fascinating half an hour together, and
Yeah.
let's keep in touch and check out our mass, and hopefully we'll bring a mass to Europe. We are already speaking actually with a very interesting group in Australia, so we might open a mass Australia before we're going to open a mass to
Oh
Europe.
wow.
But
Exciting.
but really, really thank you for your time. Yeah, yeah, and appreciate it, and we'll keep in touch.